Hey, thanks for joining me again. I am exhausted right now. I went to a Goo Goo Dolls concert last Saturday night. It is now 5:30 a.m. on Monday, and I've gotten like a brief 2-hour nap in since then. I've got a lot of work done. Oh my God, have I been productive this weekend? And I tend to be for probably another 12 hours before I go into a coma. One thing that I just about finished. Now, in last week's episode for this channel, I reviewed the second season of Iron Fist, and I promised that this time I was going to do the third season of Daredevil. And I was also going to include, and I have included, a list of really stupid ideas for silly live stream shows. Now, that episode is more or less done, except for this one sort of Daredevil parody, one solid shot pseudo kung fu hallway fight scene I was going to film. I bought some new equipment for that. I got some fake blood, all kinds of props, choreographed the whole thing, and then not enough people showed up that we could reasonably do it. So it's done except for that, but I really want to include that in it. So I'm going to hold off on that, which means I got to come up with something for this week at the last minute. So I decided, why not revisit the movie Zootopia? Now, why Zootopia? Well, aside from the fact that it was one of the best movies that came out of that year, there's a lot has been said on this, but there's a lot of points I don't think have been touched on. At least I haven't run into them. So I feel like, yeah, this is some fresh ground I can maybe break on it. So we're going to do Zootopia. A lot of ground has already been covered as far as what this movie has done correctly. A lot of people, though, overlook what it chose not to do that was every bit as smart and ballsy, quite frankly. Let's start with a history lesson. Fun fact, originally there was a very different storyline in the works here. So much so that they had already started making this completely different movie. In this movie, the predators have to wear shock collars so that they don't eat the prey. And if they have any predatory urges, they get zapped. The predators, they're allowed to live amongst the prey, but they must at all times wear the collars. Who would have been our main character, Nick the Fox. Well, his collar malfunctions, and he goes to the doctor, vet, if you prefer, and they have to take the collar off, to do some adjustments on it. And for the first time in his life, Nick doesn't have this collar on, and he feels incredibly free, and he wants other people to experience, and then the collar goes back on. His urges are being oppressed, so he decides to create a club for predators where they can illegally remove the collars and enjoy life without the oppression of being told how to act and think and behave. And then our would-be antagonist, even if not necessarily a villain, Judy the rabbit, the police officer, was going to start catching on to this. Now, I don't know where exactly that was all going to go, and there's certainly a lot of potential with that idea as far as, society telling you how you can and can't behave. But they came up with, I think, a much better idea. And they end up scrapping the entire idea of this first movie with the club where they can take off the collars and starting this completely different storyline. And now, understand, they were well into making this first movie. I mean, imagine the collective groans and outrage from everyone involved in making this movie when they made that announcement. We're going to scrap it. We're starting over. We're doing a completely different thing now. Imagine running that by the people who have to pay for the making of this movie. I mean, these are not cheap shots to make. Convincing these people that, hey, we have to start over. We have a better idea now must have been a difficult conversation. So what else this movie didn't do that was a smart move is that they didn't take the easy route with this theme of making it about racism. Now, obviously, they could have just said, they could have just had, there's the people that don't trust the predators, and they're just bad, and they're just ignorant, and that's just it. End of story. And certainly, very few people would object to that. Don't generally get upset, most of us, if we stereotype racists as being a bunch of damn idiots. But it is more complicated than that. And I do think that they took a lot of unrecognized risks in exploring it that way. You see very little deliberate racism, mean-spirited racism in it. It comes from places out of fear. It comes from, of course, ignorance. A lot of it comes from strangely good intentions, and even people who are trying not to be. Like, you have that whole conversation where, Judy, someone says, she's cute, and she explains, it's okay if another bunny calls me cute, but if you call me cute, that's bad because you're not a bunny. And the cat that says this to her is genuinely upset, didn't realize that was going to be perceived as racism. Even when the police department doesn't want to cut Judy a lot of slack because she's a little bunny rabbit, how could she keep up with us big animals in a police department? Which is a different kind of prejudice than the predator versus prey, but still a prejudice nonetheless. Even that, for the most part, is kind of understandable. See it from their point of view. Yeah, they're elephants and bulls and big, strong animals, and this, you're going to get hurt. You're a little rabbit. Is it prejudice? Sure. But does it necessarily come from an evil place? Not necessarily. All right. The most significant part of this movie, really, and in many stories, is the resurrection. And in this case, we see Judy, she's giving a press conference, and she desperately needs to explain in some way why so many of these predators are going feral. And she, desperate for an answer, says, well, maybe it's just science. Maybe it's just in their DNA. No intention of being evil or upsetting anyone or hurting anyone's feelings. She's actually baffled when this does hurt Nick's feelings. Nick being a fox, for those of you who haven't watched this movie. And for her character, that's the death scene. That's the scene where she realizes she's every bit as bad in some way. She's at least potentially as bad. And she decides she's not cut out to be a police officer. She goes back to her farm, which is the metaphorical death for her character. Her character, her journey, her goal is to become a police officer, and she's giving up. It's her death. And of course, she realizes what she needs to do, and she has to have that final ordeal for a resurrection. And in this case, it's going back to Nick and confronting that she is, and this is the direct quote, maybe I am just a dumb bunny. I don't think a lot of people realize how much there was in that line, because it's for everyone. Maybe we are all just dumb bunnies. Maybe we are all just at least a little bit prejudiced on some level or another, and maybe getting all high and mighty and telling other people, they're not woke enough, they're not progressive enough, they're not liberal enough, as if, there's something you're not doing that in another 2 generations people are going to find horrifying, and gosh, I hope your grandkids don't judge you too harshly for it. Because we all are, to some degree, a little bit prejudiced. Of course we are. We're hardwired for it. That's how we know which berries are tasty and which will kill us. We group things. And don't get me twisted here. I'm not trying to say that it's justifiable to be hateful, especially in this day and age where hate is unfortunately making a giant comeback in many societies, including look what's going on in Brazil. But more to the point, as far as I'm concerned, look what's happening right here in this country. We've got refugees coming here from Honduras, and we can't trust them. They might be criminals. They might be rapists. They might be bringing drugs and crime, disease. And this was, rewind the clock back to the 40s, if you'll allow me to rant a little here. We had Jewish refugees coming here from Europe trying to escape the Nazis. And we said the exact same thing about them, and we sent them back to die. And I'm sure no one would want to admit they were the ones that were against bringing in those refugees today. But here we are doing it again. And everyone keeps saying, oh, well, you want to be here, come here legally. That's a legal thing to do. It's legal to come here seeking asylum. And I am getting at least somewhat off track here. But my point is, even most of those people, yes, some are just hateful bigots, but most of those people are genuinely afraid. They hear this fear-mongering about these strangers, and they're concerned. They're scared. They're not necessarily hateful people. They're just being stupid bunnies. So our final point of interest here, another thing that Zootopia didn't do, and I'm very glad they didn't, with the idea that their main character, Judy Hopps, is this small bunny trying to be a police officer in a world surrounded by bigger, stronger animals. There was at least, I imagine, the temptation to say, hey, let's make us pity her for all the wrong reasons. Let's show her as this underdog who's not good at what she does. It's just struggling to get through it. You see this a lot in movies, and it's a bad move. It doesn't work because you can't really pity and respect someone at the same time. Now, yes, you do feel sorry for her when she's lonely, when she's homesick, but that's different. There's a difference between empathy and just pity. I think it was a very smart move to instead have her graduate top of her class, to use her natural skills as a rabbit to get ahead, and that makes her. It makes it much more of an injustice for us to see her not get the promotions and get stuck with the meter-maid business. That's another smart thing to do. In a romance, you don't want, if, for example, it's a guy trying to get a girl, it's just not believable or satisfying if she ends up dating a guy because she just feels sorry for him. Also, not a thing that really happens in real life. So, alright, this one was a short one. I've got to knock out a few other things. I want to be unconscious in the next 9 hours, so we'll see how that goes. I might even have this loaded by then. In any case, guys, do all the fun internet stuff. Please ring the bell, subscribe, leave a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Check out our website, such as it currently is, darkwana.com. I'll have it down in the comments section. Hopefully by the end of this week, my website will be greatly improved. Thanks a lot. We'll either have Daredevil Season 3 for you next week, or if we don't have that hallway scene filmed by then, I'm putting it out period in 2 weeks, whether I have that scene ready or not. Thanks for joining me, guys.